Hey guys, welcome to Brand Boost Podcast. And here we talk about brand building for startups and VCs. And today we have an awesome guest, literally awesome, because it is the co-founder of Awesomic. Hey Stacy.
Thank you, Sasha. Happy to be here with you, and I honor this invitation.
Thank you. Tell me more, tell us more about Awesomic and what are you doing and how did you start?
Oh, yeah. So I'm co-founder of Awesomic, and what Awesomic is, it's an app that is matching you with best fit designer or developer on a simple subscription. So imagine you need a website, you created the task, we matched you same day, and in 24 hours, you already got the first draft of your task done. And you're managing your deliverables just with the ease of software subscription, upgrading, downgrading, canceling anytime. We already delivered more than 13,000 projects successfully through the app and worked with, if I'm not mistaken, more than 2,500 companies worldwide. Mostly those are tech companies from Silicon Valley.
Wow, it sounds awesome. And you're already 4 years old?
Yeah,
Awesomic?
we were bootstrapping in 2019. In 2020, it was official beginning of Awesomic, where the company was born. And since then, we never stopped.
Wow, and let's talk about the branding at the beginning. You were not a summon at first place.
We were not. To tell more about the story, right?
Yeah, how, like, you had an idea of the business, and at some point, as I think at the beginning, you needed somehow to name it and to understand how to sell it to your first customers, to investors. How was it? Because I already know the backstory, and it is such a difference from all other companies. How they how do they like make this first brand? You were super bold, and tell us more.
Thank you. Yeah, we were a bit, and I believe that it is a sin for a startup to be boring and non-memorable, especially during early days. How would anyone will remember this small, just not developed company yet? You need to stand out, you need to be memorable. Our case was like this. With Awesomic, we were third-time founders, which sounds very serious actually, but the idea was born from the previous company. The previous company is one of my favorite cases of tone of voice and brand. We were running online school for software engineers, and it was called Doja Codes. It's now active now. We stopped actually profitable business to pivot, and Awesomic was born out of it. And the problem was coming that from the first day of Doja Codes, we understood and we invested in visuals, in brand, and we had a mascot who was Doja, and it was dog with kind of octopus thing. So it was analog and reference to GitHub, very loved by developers. And we were struggling because we had this mascot, we had already the brand, and we did not have enough money and time for for full-time designer. So we struggled with freelancers, and they were dropping our tasks. And out of this problem and pain, Awesomic was born. But initially, we were pivoting. We wanted to build and launch global business, and Doja Codes was more like for Eastern Europe, and we are originally from Ukraine. So we were pivoting and already having this experience, as I'm joking, bootstrapping. So launching a company and growing on your own money is the best MBA. You learn much faster than on investments or spending investors' money. So we saw that brand and images and that brand tone voice was really outstanding even during those early days. I was representing Doja. I was speaking from a dog. I was woofing. I was threatening students to bite them if they're not sending us homeworks. It was hilarious. And I, at that moment, already saw the reaction of people. I saw that this fun approach, being easygoing, having a specific kind of mascot to represent your brand is something that people are memorizing easier, and they are sharing those as stories, like, our courses is not like regular courses, but blah blah blah. So eventually, when we were pivoting to global market, we came up with this design by subscription idea. We believe that other small businesses and other tech companies might need someone predictable and just on a fixed rate to always be a priority, because marketing deadlines are not waiting for freelancer to get back. And that's why we launched this Awesomic thing. At that time, it was called Peace Data. And why you know it? Because we are Ukrainians and we did some noise in our and neighboring countries, because literally that word is, first, it's a bit rude. It's not considered to be a common language that is allowed, for example, for children to hear. It's a bold word, but it's very
It's like
commonly used.
a swear word.
Yeah, kind of like a swear word, but what it means, it has not a bad connotation, but usually it's used to describe something literally fucking amazing. And we already had infrastructure for this name. That's why I was telling, like, bootstrapping, you learn a lot. So we learned that before we are putting a lot of efforts and investments into building the brand, designing for a long time, we just need to launch and test. So we had infrastructure for Peace Data, we had domain name already paid, and we decided just to launch this new idea of design subscription very easily. And from the idea till the first landing page was just a couple of days, and to the first customer, 10 days. So we were just truly startup mode, iterating. And this is how it was born. We had this infrastructure, and also we were thinking, okay, for this design idea, Peace Data might work, because a lot of times design, great design that is bringing some emotions, is described as Peace Data, something fucking amazing. But hilariously, our first customers, they were local, so they understood the joke, and it became viral. We started to be invited to, the first time I remember, the radio stations to give interviews about this. Media wrote articles about us. In neighboring countries like Romania, for example, they also have variation of this word. But in other cultures with similar languages, it's not a good word. It's mostly something negative and something about like ladies' genitals. So not a good thing to name a company. And they literally made media posts. So it generated a lot of attention. And the funniest thing that when after we started to have dozens of thousands of people visiting our website per month. So just like they were checking out what the hell, and the discussion started in social media. So we were opening Facebook to be tagged in threads where people were discussing, literally fighting each other, battling heatedly on, are we marketing geniuses because it cost us nothing and people discuss it? And some of the people were fighting with opinion that we're total imbeciles who know only rude words and can name the company accordingly, because definitely we're so stupid. And it paid off.
You really had haters so early on.
Yes. So it paid off. For the first year of us bootstrapping the company and just testing the idea and business model and whether we want to invest our lives into this company, we were having this very loud and bold name that is, at one hand, pretty common to describe good design, which was nice. But when we started to get to our target audience, and as I mentioned, our target audience are locals here in the US, mostly from Silicon Valley, innovative companies, startups. For them, that word was like they were not getting the joke. Some people were clearly asking me, such an interesting name. Is it something about pizza and data? And I'm like, no, definitely not pizza and data. And maybe the last funniest thing about this naming was that back in the days, this data was registered in the US as a company with the help of my grandmother. And my grandmother is a regular grandmother, pretty Catholic one. So it took her years to understand what it actually was and what that name meant, because she was living in the US for many, many years before, and she like sincerely spelled it as Peace Data. And this is why the joke is coming. This is how we pronounce. But in Ukrainian, it's definitely Peace Data. And when we were invited to media, for example, to speak on the radio, they asked us to use the grandmother's version of name, because otherwise it will be like peak and cut it out. So to give an interview about our company and how we and what we launched as an entrepreneurs, we needed to use a kind of different version of the name, being more like American one, Peace Data.
Wow, so very interesting story, really. And I don't know if any other founders could go through it negativity or second thoughts about it, when people think about the name for their company, they ask their, I don't know, parents, wives, friends, like, do you like it? Do you like it? They want this, like, appreciation of the name, and like, yeah, you can go with it. But you did like super opposite thing, and wow.
We were like this as well. We also wanted some validation externally. But why we had this data infrastructure? Because we already had this company owned and earned before. So when we were really young, traveling Asia and creating the name for our first company, just imagine this moment. We are driving on a motorbike. My partner, he's my partner in business and in life. It's interesting. So he's driving the motorbike on the highway on high speed. I'm sitting behind him, and we're brainstorming the names for our first company. And he tells me, like, I want my first company to be named something like fucking amazing. This is how it should be. And like, let's name it Piz Data. And my first question was, how would I tell that to my mom? Eventually, it was not the biggest problem. The problem for mom was when my little brother was asking, like, I heard Stacy's company is named interestingly. What does it mean? And mom is like, Stacy, it's your job. Go explain to your brother. So it was a fun moment. But overall, like, nothing that critically rude or nothing that bad. I still stand for marketing to have story behind that, and to like dividing opinions and people battling, to me, is much better than being and going unnoticeable, just like invisible. Most of the startups, they try to be very serious from the beginning and to pretend to be like a corporate style. We are very serious, we are mature, even though they're not. And I think that being honest and authentic is the great foundation for the brand. So instead of trying to pretend being very serious and having kind of corporate name as it looked like something from I don't know, Silicon Valley, it's better to be yourself, I believe. And at that moment, we felt like launching company name Piz Data. So it just reflected us, you know?
Wow. And yeah, and just embrace yourself and like your authenticity as founders. It's great. And so did your brand evolve from this data to Awesomic, as well as you also evolved as founders? What,
It
like,
sure did.
why did you change the name eventually? When was it, and how did you decide to do it?
I think it's pretty obvious why we changed name, in a way that first, the joke was not meant to be that long. It was great for an experiment. It's great for early launching. You don't want to live with such name forever. Second of all, it was not hitting the target for our main customers. If they don't get the joke, brand is not working, who are we talking to? Like, it's not for founders, it's for customers to decide mostly. So after this feedback about pizza and data, we already knew that we need to speed up the ideas of the new name. But it took us a really long time, as I perceive it, to come up with Awesomic. So for other people, if they're nervous that they can't come up with a name in a week or a month, don't worry. It took us around 6 months on the background of thinking, eventually brainstorming, having meetings back and forth. It's not like we were actively sitting for half a year thinking about that, but we were returning to that issue once again and once again. And eventually it just came. Somewhere in the brainstorming, we were thinking about this, and Awesomic, as combination of two words, came pretty randomly to us, and we love it from the beginning. Why? Those who understand our business know that we are a two-sided marketplace, basically. We are matching companies, their design tasks, with talents, designers, or developers. That's why Awesomic, as combination of awesome and cosmic, awesome companies, cosmic people, made total sense for us. And we wanted to be in this around cosmic theme. It was our brief. We wanted to be around space because it's inspiration for us, and going beyond limits and going into new, like discovering new planets and lives, hopefully. So it was an idea, but it came pretty randomly and unexpectedly, and took some time for birth. Not 9 months as a child, but pretty close.
And how did you present this new brand for your clients, for customers, for, I don't know, to the crowd?
Yeah. I know what you mean. So before we were with Piss Data, we definitely felt, and it was true, like underdogs, those people being young but rebellious and bold, and we need to fight the norm, and we were such an nonconformist. But as I mentioned before, it comes with some emotional price in a way. So I'm just very thankful to my partner having kind of unity to internet, and he was joking like, Stacy, internet is not for serious people. Don't be too serious there. Don't fight with people in the comments. It makes no sense. Learn the art of trolling. And I'm like, oh my God, you are so smart. You're right. And we just have a small age difference. And he's like, I'm in internet since my childhood. So like no one is serious here. But with Awesomic, what's important is as marketing person, I always react to feedback. It's very important, not only like my joke, how it's funny to me, but how the people react. Does it make sense to the customers? So with this rebrand, we right away, immediately started to receive feedback like, great naming. Oh, it fits you well. Oh, who created this for you? So our customers and friends and people in communities, they started to react very positively about this naming really fitting the business. So it's also important that name works good in pair with product, value prop, with brand overall of what you're creating. For us, it's not only a combination of words, it's about awesome being one of the main adjectives, how people here describe something beautiful, great design, something that they liked. And we already received tons of awesomes in our app from customers responding to designs. So we're like, yeah, if they react with awesome, it makes a lot of sense. So we started to get this feedback from customers. But the funny thing behind that, we also had in a month after we rebranded, so it was somewhere summer 22 or 2020, and right in a month after we announced rebranding, we announced fundraising the first round. It was pre-seed. It was coming from 5 top angel investors, and all of those were successful entrepreneurs from Europe. So they built and sold unicorns before. They understood the journey, and they were really into our story. So for them, this data was, oh, that funny couple that is doing some rude word business, they are fun. And this is how they described us to their friends, or when they did intro to other investors. So we know that this funny name or being bold, it's not repellent for serious people or for VCs. It's not like you need to be serious in order to attract money or attention. No, we fundraised as Peace Data actually. But in a month, we already announced this, and our investor came to us, one of those. He built and sold a unicorn company for 1.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken. And he's privately messaging us, guys, if someone from investors is pushing you to do this rebranding and change the name, kind of fuck him. And they're like, no, it's on us. No one is pushing us. It's just the time came, and the time came, and it was pretty obvious that the next part of our journey should be in a way that customers will also appreciate.
Wow, it's super fun. And this investor he cared about you, and so
Yeah.
turned to put.
Yeah.
And as I know, you and some of your employees also have now a tattoo of your logo.
Yes.
For me, is like, wow, it's one of the greatest levels of brand building, to create such brands so founders and employees want to make this like a part of their body, a part of their story, a part of their life. And as I remember, it is your first tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's here. I'm not sure it's visible right now. Maybe I'm turning down the Apple Watches. Was not thinking about that before. Yeah, I also have a funny story about that. So it's actually a Awesomic logo with some of the additional elements, so it's a bit in movement. And it is my first tattoo. And it happened after, unfortunately, the full-scale invasion started in Ukraine, and sometime after. We were in Ukraine, we were relocating people, evacuating people, doing all we could to secure a company, and it was successful. We kept growing despite all of those challenges and working from bunkers. And I believe a bit more than half a year into the war, I was thinking to myself, Stacy, is there something else that you might be afraid of? I mean, the war thing, in your life has happened. Like, I'm not sure there's something worse than war to experience and those risks. So I was thinking, like, getting a tattoo is the smallest fear that you can have. Eventually go for it. And I was thinking at that time about what to do a tattoo with, and I decided that company already. My partner, by the way, he was not fond of this idea. He's like, come on, companies are sold. Sometimes they fail. No, we will do our best and it will succeed. But you need to allow possibilities and it's forever. So are you sure that will be a good association in 10, 20 years? Maybe it will just remind you of some bad things happening. And my pushback to that was that this company already changed my life for the better and it will never be the same for me. So if this happened to my life, I want to do this. And why it's the funny thing that I'm calling it, it's actually not even employees. We had 3 more tattoos in Awesomic people who are working through our app. And the designers made tattoos of different size. Mine is the smallest. We have people actually having it for half a hand, and actually the whole, like, I'm having the logo thing, which is kind of the pictorial, and we have a guy who actually tattooed Awesomic, like lettering with the words, and all those are designers, and designers are even not employees. They are our users. They're using our app to match with companies, kind of like imagine Upwork and someone having tattoos of Upwork. I can't imagine this happening. I believe their brand needs some fixing. But on the other hand, it was a proud moment for us. And when we gather, we do some fun photos together of like showing our tattoos and so on. I really believe that people come first in brand, company, whatever you do. So they're the advocates. And it was just, once again, a reminder in the middle of the worst crisis possible in our understanding, we felt that support. And I believe it was coming from us delivering what we promised. So like we promised to care about our people in better or worse, whatever happens. And when the invasion started, we really cared. We were calling people personally, even the users on the platform, even the designers, helping to relocate those families, meeting them after curfew in the middle of the night in some cities to help them find apartments. We were just there for them. And I believe those tattoos are just coming as a result of bonding during some really difficult times, not just because they love the logo, but because they can trust that it means something and we have values behind it.
Wow, it's really one of the metrics for brand building, which are not obvious and not business oriented, but maybe also actually business oriented, because if people feel that they connect so much with the brand, it also somehow reflects how they bring their designs to their to the companies, to their clients, and so on. And I never met any other company before with tattoos of their logos. And
maybe they're hiding.
And what about, how do you feel, what metrics was influenced by your brand? Because it's always so hard to, to put some KPIs in brand building.
With Awesomic and with recently we did the visual rebranding. For me, it's more qualitative things. So with Awesomic, first feedbacks. I started talking to users and customers and target audience potential leads, and a lot of them were specifically mentioning, who came up with this name? Who created that for you? Did you have an agency or something like that? So I immediately knew, oh, that clicks. It's easy to remember. But what happened next, why we decided to visually update pretty young brands still, around this New Year's, we released the website that is still, in my opinion, very drafty, but it represents totally new visual style. The name brand is the same, but positioning and the feeling is very different now. And it's related to who we want to be and what we want to launch. And by that, I mean, with Awesomic, previously our visuals were about being playful, again, being bold, being creative. And people, when we had pretty fun site with a lot of colors, It was bright. On the first screen, we had our photos, me and my partner. We were doing allusion on this famous art piece about creation of the world, where just like two hands are touching each other, and we were like astronauts in space as a collage.
And also, you had a dog.
Yes,
Your dog
yes.
also was on the
Our
website.
dog was on the website, so it was fun. Again, it like caught some attention. But why we decided to update it is because we're now going after bigger customers. We're delivering top-notch designs, and we're launching more premium collaborations. So before, when we were playing this, oh, we're cost-effective solution, we're helping you to save costs on your design, having it on subscription, and it made sense to be like this, to be that friendly and playful and just about creating. But now, as we started to launch new products, and for the last year, we already successfully had this one-to-one matching. So it's more like premium one. It starts from $5,000, $6,000 per month. So it just required more of feeling like it, more trust, more style, that we are really into creating some thoughtful design. So that's why we decided that brand name is perfect, people know and love it, but we need to work on visuals. And we were a bit updating the colors and palette and kind of values behind it. So the brand was having a second breath. And now how I see the success, it's like I'm not sure how connected it is, but are we selling more of those premium subscriptions than ever before? Yes. But is it altogether effort of like teammates and us having more insights about the market and the new brand? I believe it's altogether, it's hard to separate, but we just see when we talk to users that it works, it gives the right feeling, it gives the right look. We just need to polish more and more on details and video content that I believe is a big trend now. So hint, go for short videos.
How do you think can the companies keep their part that you have had, like of this data and funny stuff and so on and viral, and just go straight to their like big checks, premium something and so on? Or is
I
it
believe
possible?
so. I honestly believe that with company building, same with startups, there is not that much a playbook. Some things are definitely figured out. For example, like the best standard for incorporation, for structuring the first teammates, for launching your MVP, whatever. But with the brand, as companies representing the founders always, it starts with you. And if you don't feel comfortable with bold creative name who people will discuss on the internet, I don't believe you should boost it. I don't believe that you will enjoy this process as much as we were enjoying it, because we literally had fun, and I believe it's very important. So just having fun, it's important to me, a part of the journey. So if you're having fun somewhere else in your startup journey, still do it, because like you're solving complicated problems for the world. You are solving some complexities. You're overwhelmed still. So being adventurous, being more noticeable, I believe is a great advice, but you can always use it in regards of your context. For example, if you're launching heavily enterprise startup related to enterprise sales and building software for them, you can skip all this thing. You don't need those, because like enterprise don't really care about your brand that much, and sales process is so much different, and it might take months or half a year or even a year, and it will be up to your salesperson, VP of sales, or whoever is doing it, how good it can be sold, rather than to have a fun naming or something like that. It's still easier when you can catch some attention. It's still easier. What I believe in, it's not necessarily rude words or fun things. I believe in storytelling. So with every brand, even for enterprise, whatever you're creating, I believe that you might nail the story behind it. How you came up with this, why it's important to exist in the world, why do you believe it's a good idea, kinda your main motivations and values, and some story points to build into one interesting storyline. For example, in our case, we were a lot of times founders, and I meet more and more couples who are building businesses together. a lot of times by very classic investors, very serious ones, it's considered kind of a red flag because like you're a couple and you might fight or whatever. But actually by top investors, kind of like Y Combinator, the first and the most successful accelerator to this day, is created by a couple, Jessica Livingston and Paul Graham, and they had a third co-founder. So it's actually a lot of longest staying companies, family companies. Those are owned by families and created by couples. But for us, it was kind of first, we were not sure, do we use it? But we tested the story. Our story behind is that we were matched in Tinder 8 years ago, and now we match people for the job. And this was the pitch line that we started our fundraising calls. Like, who are you guys? We are Roman and Stacy. We were matched in Tinder. Now we match people for the job. It was hella memorable. People really told each other about this line. We were telling this from stage and people laughed. It's immediate reaction. So when we started to get these intros, when we started to hear early investors telling, oh, this is this Tinder couple, you know, those like Tinder guys, those like funny guys or something like that. We knew that it works. So if you have some story points that you can like embed into your marketing and brand, being a part of it, working for you to catch attention, do it, but in your own authentic way. Because I believe with brand, there is no playbook. It's about really being authentic and going for your own insight, what you want the world to see and know about you and how you can tell it.
I totally agree with your philosophy and your vision. And I think that the great, like, you cannot skip the brand part if you're a founder and if you are building like your company and you just get up in the morning and like, oh my God, I want to build it. And so you already have some idea and just you need to put it in the like storytelling to connect with other people. But of course I heard a lot of, there is like another point of view that brands are for big companies, that like you as a founder of early stage startup, you need to think about like product market fit or like customers, market, invest anything, but about brand and first thoughts about brand building can be like on the Series A or somewhere
Yeah.
there.
And I know what you mean. Sometimes it's totally valid. When I hear early startup, they're like raising pre-seed, before seed, and they're investing a lot of money into hiring an agency to build their own brand for dozens or thousands of dollars. It makes no sense to me because I'm like, you'd better figure out your value proposition and who are your customers. But I believe brand is like value add. So it's something that helps you differentiate from the world, and telling that it's only for big companies, it's like telling that small companies do not form reputation. It's like if you're entering the market, if you're entering internet, people start talking about you or do not talk about you, and you better control it. So it's actually not up to you whether a choice there is to build a brand or not. It's just if you're not doing this, you're still having something, how people describe you, how people try to get some feeling or understanding or your positioning, but maybe you're just not controlling it, meaning it does not work for you. It's not helping you to win. So I would find this golden balance between investing efforts in understanding how are we different, how we gonna tell that to the world, how our customers reading our marketing materials, what do they remember, how they associate us with, do they think that we are cheap or expensive, cool or simple, like do we come up a sophisticated product or something very simple to use. You can control those narratives just with your visuals, just with your tone of voice, what kind of text you're putting on the landing page. But I would not think in categories of like big brands like Coca-Cola, Nike, we need art director, we need brand director, we need a big production to like do some shootings of our ads and being very costly. Not really. Our first ad, it was also a hilarious story. It came to the media as well. Our first ad was just on the napkin. It was ugly. It was with marker that is a bit inconsistent and going down. And it went something like designed for $3.99. This data is. It was a napkin, literally, put on the, it was a board on the co-working space. So startups were entering for some startup event, tech events, and there was this board with some business cards. And all of the business cards, as always, they were serious and prestigious from some serious people, and it was this ugly napkin in the center. And it generated customers. People just literally stopped to laugh at all because like, what's happening? Like, do they really do design? It was hilarious. So I'm just going for hacks. And if those hacks can bring you attention, this is what you can always convert. Like, attention in modern internet is easily convert into leads and customers or intros to other investors. But if you're just as anyone, not being noticeable, being like just as a standard, copy pasting some others landing pages because you believe that it's enough, it might be just as a shooting in your leg. It does not cost that much. It does not require that much time to come up with your company's personality. Because in my understanding, how I divide like reputation and brand, reputation is something that is already happening, how people perceive, but brand is how they like the story behind it with all the elements and what feeling you're creating. So again, you'd better control it. You'd better create personality for your company, who you want it to be, what kind of human, let's say, because usually the best brands represent kind of the lifestyle, the feeling, the human beside it, who want to be associated with this brand. And there's also great questions to think even early on in your journey.
Yeah, that's true. I like also your point about the balance, because we all know, and that's why I love your story so much. We all know that if you're thinking about the brand, if you're a perfectionist, you're like, oh my God, for like, okay, we can pivot a lot of times, but my name will be forever. And this like theme, like forever, it's like, it pushes you so much and it is so heavy when you think that this is forever logo, this is forever colors, forever naming that will be like for my company. And I like that you can just say, we can change it. If it doesn't work, we change it and it's okay. I like your story that your brand grew up with you, and it's super interesting, and it reflects you and your co-founder, your partner, what you're building at, and I'm feeling it. And I'm sure, as you say also from your interviews with customers and clients, that they also feel it. So great job.
I so much appreciate those words. Honestly, there is nothing better to me when people really can perceive what we wanted to do. And my favorite comments and those, like, it's just spontaneous. When something is happening, like for example, Y Combinator put a video about us on their YouTube channel, and some of the customers came in comments and they were mentioning something like, I'm coming up from memory, like, they live by its name. Awesomic is truly awesome. We used it. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Yeah, like living by its name, it's the best compliment I had, because like we want to represent something like awesome on a cosmic level. And a short note to the previous topic about heaviness of this decision. I saw both extremes. I saw founders who were very hesitant because it feels like, oh, it's forever. And I also saw founders who are not giving it enough attention and thoughts, and then struggle a lot. And as an example of it can be when founders are using some common word in naming of the company. So then they need to beat Google in terms of this word being so commonly used, some generic word, for example, I don't know, milk, and then you're fighting all the other queries and very relevant source things, and it's very hard to stand out. So I believe you need to be somewhere in the middle. You need to research, does other company use this name, how it's like spelling, how people are hearing this. So all of those details are still important, but not that you will overthink it. Kind of like this.
An interesting question about brands of VCs. Do you think, is it important for VC you are talking to about new round or investment or anything?
So it's like really combination of how they do business and how they transcribe that to the world. But for investors, I believe it's just about feedbacks of previous founders. So my recommendation will be to go and ask other people who were really value adds
and who you want to talk to. At the end of the day, it will kind of either make it or break your company, because bad cap table and toxic investors can literally kill you. So this is why it's not only about the brand. And some of the biggest brands on the market, they still might have some, let's say, bad partners. So for example, it can be the huge fund with great reputation, but it consists with a variety of partners investing. And some partners might be great and live by their word, and some partners might be not. And they're just kind of hiding behind that brand, and people trust them, and they find out that, oh, it's not really the same ethics as I was promised. Kind of like this.
Yeah, it's really important because you can check the brand and their authenticity very quickly. When you have like a long customer journey and you have a lot of points of interaction, you can spoil your brand very quickly with something that's just not add up with something that you said before previously, or you change the tone of voice, anything. So yeah, any advice for a startup thinking about brand building process?
I would return to previous thing, just also to mention and to give you credit and very well-deserved praises, because you were responsible for rebranding one of the funds who are our investors, and we love those. And this is the first time actually when I was witnessing very powerful rebranding that was aligning the values of the team and founding team with how they translated visually. And the first time we were invited to rebranding party from VC. I've never ever heard of such event, even in the Valley. No way. We moved here. No brand, like no funds somehow are not rebranding. I don't know why. Some of them might need that. But with the fund that you were representing at the time with Flyer One Ventures, it was really very successful. I'm enjoying that story. It's the easiest way for me to come up with who I want to talk to from my investors, all the ones who are having the story, because I really love how this naming is having a lot of meanings behind it. This is why like Flyer One Ventures and so on, about Wright brothers. So it's very powerful, and I believe it's like, again, adding some value to me remembering that, and it coming to my mind first of thing behind some just regular, normally named brands.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And actually, I just wanted to add that really having a brand, like we were doing it for like almost 7 months, like brand strategy, name and design, and then website, launch event, and presence for our founders. The easiest way now, living with a brand and some idea, is that you can easily come up with the idea of some presence or merchandise or some event. We were thinking about, what do we do for a website? And we have an idea of Brothers Rise. We have Flyer and Ventures, and we wanted to bring to Ukrainian Stand and Web Summit stories about Ukrainian inventors of helicopters and of airplane, and tell a story about that. And it is super easy and it's super fun. And we didn't come up with something, let's do hands,
So. No, it was I agree. Brands make other marketing answers pretty much simple, because like the ground, fundamentals, you understand the values, and it's easier to come up from anything from corporate gifts to some whatever offline offsites or gatherings. But it was truly amazing. So I'm a fan really of the work that you've been doing, guys. And going back to the question of the advice for startups on branding side, let me think for a moment. I would think I'm not sure how banal it is, but I stand by authenticity. Be yourself. Just go deeper. And I believe same with people. Expression brings emotion. So whenever you're not expressing yourself or expressing your company, it's really hard for other people to connect. And usually companies are a bit scared of being vulnerable, of sharing themselves, of telling their stories too much, kind of like, why do we need this? We can just put, pricing and some corporate wording. But I believe why it's needed more than ever, because now marketing is not, I'm not believing anymore in B2B or B2C. It's more like P2P or H to H in a way that it's people to people or human to human. This is why personal brands are now rising and very successfully working to boost companies. This is why people are most likely to follow person, founder, or executive rather than corporate account in any social media. Corporate accounts, no matter how great the content will be, still are losing to people because our brains subconsciously, they need other humans. They need faces, they need emotions, they need expressions, they need to connect. So in any way possible, I'm recommending you to bring this connect to help your audience to understand who you are, why you're special, why you're different, what's the story behind. So you can model the narrative that you want them to tell about you behind the scenes. Imagine you're not in the room and your customers happy, unhappy, no matter what will be the story behind it. Will they tell, maybe their product is a bit early, their startup, but we really enjoy that, or we really remembered that, and we saw this with early days. So it's just priceless. And I would really recommend to invest into this authenticity in finding your way and your voice in the world. And then other answers, as you mentioned, will be much simpler.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's a great advice. And I think that actually it's really super hard because when you start to dig into your brand, what do you build? You ask yourself these questions. What are my values? What I believe in? And it's a lot of personal work, and it is a lot of this exploration of your self-awareness, your self-discovery, oh my God. And if there is you and your co-founders, you need to align all those. And maybe it's also a point why people try say, we are building our branding company for our customers. So let's do whatever they want, whatever they are looking for, their values, and we will just stay back on the business side.
Yeah.
Talking about personal brands and following people on LinkedIn, I encourage everybody who listen to this podcast to follow Stacy on LinkedIn because I'm sure she will share a lot of insights and a lot of news about Awesomic and about maybe launching some personal podcasts or something. And also follow me, of course. But maybe you already follow me because you see this podcast. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Sasha. It was amazing. It was a pleasure for me to be here. It was a pleasure to be your guest. And also, really, I believe that your guys following Sasha because if you are interested in brands or into building those, she knows things. She is doing that with her own brain and hands rather than just being theoretical about that. We know a lot of people being theoretical in the field, but you would like to connect with practitioners. And I deeply recommend Sasha for that. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.